Good evening. Welcome to the last show of 2022 at Last Bell Boxing. Joined by regulars Andy and Sean. Good evening, gents.
Evening, mate.
Good evening. We won't talk about what we talk about off camera. We'll leave that for next Christmas bloopers. So let's jump straight into it, guys. Obviously, so what we're going to do tonight really is a bit of a light-hearted show. We're going to look back at 2022. Have a bit of a chat about how we think the year went, and then finally we'll look towards 2023 and have a chat about what we're looking forward to. So, as ever, comments in the sidebar. Anyone who wants to get involved, please post your comments. If you want to join on camera, I'll post a link as we go into the first segment. And let's start with the first one then. So, bit of a general one, this one. So, Sean, we'll start with you. What's your highlight of 2021, 2022 even?
For me, I think it has to be Conlon and Lee Wood.
Do you want to give it a bit of reason why, Sean? Obviously, the knockouts got to have a bit to do with it.
Yeah, I just think out of all the fights that we've seen so far, sort of the way that fight just turned on its head in the latter stages, I don't think you could sort of scripted it really. So I think for me that's the fight of the year.
Well, like you, Andy, what's your highlight?
I've got two. Obviously, Lee Wood, Conlon. It's probably the most emotional I've felt up and down emotional wise. I've felt watching a fight live. Anytime I've been to all the fights, I've been on the edge of my seat, but not thinking to myself what's going to happen next. And I thought that in that Conlon Lee Wood fight, from probably about round 4 or 5 when Lee Wood started getting back into it. I thought to myself, we've got a proper fight on here. Because before that point, Carl, I'll be completely honest with you, I was worried. Because it was a very heavy knockdown in the first round. And it took Lee a few rounds to get himself, get his legs back under him to start with.
Yeah.
And then to be able to kind of get his strength back to a point where he could then start taking a bit of control later on in the fight. Because he did. You know, from about round 8 onwards, mate, he was the better fighter, and he was having success in those mid rounds, even though he still wasn't properly with it. I'd really like to hear from Lee Wood and kind of get a bit more in depth into how he was feeling in them first stages of that fight, because I've heard comments from him on other interviews saying things like, he don't even remember the knockdown.
Yeah, I've heard him say that.
And he thought it was a flash knockdown. So when you've been buzzed as hard as he was buzzed in that round, I mean, I don't know. He might have even been out for a few seconds because it was very heavy, wasn't it? But anyway, I digress. The reason I liked it so much, we was obviously there. We were sat in the cheap seats in amongst everyone in the crowd, which I think added to the occasion, apart from the fact that you got drenched in beer a few times, which isn't the most pleasant thing in the world. But it adds to the occasion when you're in amongst it all. It was just so up and down, and so I just didn't know what was going to happen next. And then to get the finish that we got was just unbelievable, mate. So that's from the male side of boxing. That one stands head and shoulders above any other. For those reasons also, and for the fact that it was just outstanding. And then you can't dismiss Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. That's just... If it hadn't been for the Lee Wood fight, I'd be making Taylor Serrano my fight of the year, regardless. It was just outstanding, mate. I don't know how both of them were standing at the end of the fight. Taylor looked like she was out.
Yeah.
She was still throwing, standing and throwing. It just shows what a warrior she is, but it shows also how well conditioned both of them are. Brilliant fight. I can't wait to see it again, and I hope next time it's 3 rounds, 3-minute rounds.
Yeah, I'm going to get hammered for mine too. Well, one of them I am. because I'm going to go for I like the Tyson Fury versus Del Boy fight purely because I was there and the spectacle and the whole event.
Right.
People are going to slag the fight off, but you know, to be there, it was special. Yeah. It was very special. And then I'd have to go for the Wood Conlan. We wasn't in the best seats. We had a lot of, there's no other way to say it, we had a lot of drunk, foolish people around us. You know, the guy next to us, someone got pushed and took him out. You was having to appease half the Forest crowd.
The dude in front of me, mate. That dude in front of me. You must have asked me. I'm not joking, Sean. This lad in front of me, he was absolutely battered. Could barely stand up, and he kept turning around and asking me if I was all right. You all right, mate? You all right, mate? And he must have said it about 500 times. I kid you not. Honestly,
yeah, it's ridiculous. And then obviously I needed an umbrella with the amount of beer that was going over me. Yeah. But what a fight! I mean, a lot of Conlan fans like to rewrite history regarding that fight because to listen to them, Conlan was battering Leigh Wood around the ring for 11 and a half rounds, and then Leigh Wood won the lottery and knocked him out, which just wasn't the case. Good evening, too easy. Happy holidays, fella. So obviously Tyson Fury purely for the spectacle, but Leigh Wood, it was a great night from start to finish. So
Therese, I don't know if you saw the very start of the show. We're having a bit of a light-hearted one tonight. We're just talking. We're going to go through our highlights of the year. So the first one we're talking about, mate, is your highlight fight of 2022. What was your favourite fight and why?
That'll be quick for you, too easy, because the Americans haven't really performed this year, have they? So,
you're not even letting him settle in before you're giving him it, Cole.
You know,
light-hearted tonight, mate.
I'm sure there's some small old show in Brooklyn that about 5 people turned up to that might have been a good fight.
Easy. Season of goodwill, mate. Remember.
God bless it. God bless America.
I'm on your side, Therese.
So moving on to the next one then, Jen, before Therese gets typing away. So next one's quite interesting one. So it's fighter of 2022. And I don't want to start going into weight classes, just purely who is your fighter of 2022. And we'll come to Andy on this one, because this one is subjective, but, light-hearted show.
You going to me, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've wrote down a few names. I've actually wrote down one male name. And that's Dimitri Bivol. I don't think there's any argument. Other fighters are probably better pound for pound. But you could argue the ones that are pound for pound have not really tested themselves in 2022.
Is there any Americans in there, Andy, before we get accused of being anti-American? I'm sure there is on the female side.
Obviously Crawford, mate. You've got regardless of how you think those antics went on in that fight against David Avanesian, that's going to rear its ugly head again. That's not done and dusted, mate. I'm telling you now. But Crawford for me is pound for pound.
Yeah,
number one. Everyone had Canelo pound for pound number one, and then Bivol went and did what he did. And now everyone's thinking, is Canelo really all that? Which tells you just how good a job Bivol did. Because how many years is it since Canelo lost to Mayweather?
A while.
A long while. And Bivol did what he did to him. And then he went on and did the same thing to Ramirez, who by the way, is very dangerous himself. So for me, lads, male side, it's Bivol by quite some way this year. On the female side, I think you can name 4 or 5 fighters that have had brilliant years. Natasha Jonas winning 3 world titles, coming out of, let's be right, mate. Let's have it right. Coming out of the wilderness in some ways. She was cast aside pretty much with Matchroom. She wasn't getting the shows she deserved to get. She never got the rematch that she deserved against Terry Harper.
No.
She had a brilliant fight against Katie Taylor, and really probably deserved another fight there. And then it kind of all died off, and she didn't have anything. And she's had to move up 3 weight classes to get what really she's deserved for a long time, and that's another world title shot.
I'm just going to jump in, Andy. Tweezy says Chocolatito versus Estrada 3 was yet another classic. Not surprising in the least. But if I had to pick a top highlight, it would be the all-female card. It was not only historic, but it was pure fireworks.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that, mate. So Natasha Jonas, just because of the fact she's come from where she's come from, and he's now a 3-belt holder. Chantel Cameron for becoming undisputed in what was a quite an easy fight in the end. Everyone was thinking she was going to have a very, very tough night, and I tell you now, mate, she's going to go up a weight, and she's going to take the 4 belts in that division as well. She will be a 2-weight undisputed champion next year. Absolutely no doubt about that. And the last one is Clarissa Shields.
Yeah.
We kind of didn't slate her, but we kind of, the majority of us on our show, and a lot in the sidebar was saying there was no way she was going to win. There was no way.
Sean called it.
Eh?
Sean called it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Most of us thought she wouldn't have enough. Most of us thought, but she was outstanding, mate, and she stood and traded. It just goes to show just how good she is. Not only as a pro, but as what she's achieved in the amateurs as well.
To be fair to her, she's done exactly what she said she was going to do.
Absolutely, mate. So you've got to put her up there. So it's very difficult for me in the female side. I'm going to go for Natasha Jonas because of where she came from this year.
Yeah, Sean.
But it could be any of them for me.
Yeah, Sean.
In the male side, I've got a couple, and they're both in the same weight. Joe Cordina and Shakur Stevenson. I thought they both had great years. It's obviously a shame that he got injured and had to vacate his belt, but I don't think anyone anticipated the knockout he got to win the world title, considering he's not really a puncher. And then for the females, I agree. I think for me though, it's Chantel Cameron. After she's sort of gone under the radar and been neglected a little bit, but for her to be undisputed, and now she's obviously got the world at her feet in multiple divisions.
So
Absolutely.
I'm going to go for, I've gone Dimitri Bivol, obviously, but I've gone Devin Haney as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Haney.
Yeah, because obviously I watched Liverpool on here, and last time I looked at it from America, so no comments, too easy.
Yeah.
The performance against Cambosa, I really don't understand to this day why people slag him off for that first performance, because I thought from a boxing purist point of view, it was a top draw performance. So I've gone for Devin Haney. Female wise, you can't look too far away from Clarissa Shields, can you? So I've just gone for Clarissa Shields. I thought, she's under the caution that last fight against Savannah Marshall because of the amateur situation. She beat her in the amateurs, and I thought she's shown a lot of mental toughness. And I thought the performance was absolutely top draw.
Yeah. Let's not forget as well the pressure that she was under coming over here.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at, if you think not just about the fight and about the fight week, but about the build up to the event as well.
I remember it was cancelled as well. Remember it was cancelled due to the Queen's death. To then have to go back into camp and do it all over again is even more impressive.
And she was put under a lot of pressure by fans, and also a little bit by the broadcaster. They put her in a couple of really difficult positions up in Newcastle in the Lions' Den. Very tough, and she came through that with.
So Tweezy says Clarissa Shields versus Marshall, holding the event in England was the smartest thing to get the best turnout. Truly, they nailed it beautifully.
Absolutely, mate.
And Joe Allen Boxing, good evening, Joe, says England is boxing today. So I agree.
Can't argue with that, Joe. We say it quite a lot on this channel. the England hold all the cards when it comes to putting the best fights on, the best shows on, and clearly female boxing, it only resides in the UK.
And Eddie Hearn's got a lot to be thanked for that, because I think he was a bit of a trailblazer. I know we're very fair on this channel in terms of promoters, and that beautifully leads us into the next section. So, Sean, we're going to come to you first on this one this time. So, it can be worldwide, Sean. You world your lobster. So, if you want to talk about some Arum, etc. So, which promoters had the best 2022? Evening, Joe.
I mean, I think it has to be Hearn and Matchroom, doesn't it? Well, when you look what they've done worldwide, obviously the AJ rematch, he's done Canelo twice, all the fights in America, the Chocolatito fight the other week. I don't see how you can look past there. I mean, I know he's been a bit light here with Shays recently, but I think if you're talking about on the worldwide scale, it has to be Hearn and Matchroom for me.
And
I'm a bit torn here, mate. I agree with Sean. Worldwide, Matchroom have definitely had the finger on the pulse, breaking into new markets, making the massive fights. But over here in the UK, has been poor. I don't mind saying it. Like you said earlier on, Carl, we're very fair on this channel. He's been poor. He's been beat by Frank Warren and Queensberry on 3 or 4 really big purse bids, which, when he was with Sky, would never have happened. Again, I've said it a few times, are the purse strings being tightened a little bit? Because obviously there's only, they use Golden Boy Promotions now for the majority of the American shows. Just wonder whether the weight shifted a little bit towards Golden Boy, and maybe not allowing Matchroom to have the big purses that they had before. So worldwide, DAZN and Matchroom Matchroom without a doubt. But in the UK, I honestly do think that he's losing ground. He's losing fighters. They're going to signing big contracts with Boxer and Sky because they're not being used properly. We've said it no end of times on this show. Liam Smith is a perfect example. He's been underused by Matchroom for a number of years now, and he's felt the need to leave and go to Sky Sports because he knows it's a big platform. And a lot of people, and maybe rightly so, will say Boxer haven't proven it yet as a promoter. Ben Shalom and Boxer maybe haven't proven it, but they did 2 million views for Shields against Marshall. What other show did that? None. Not a single one did that numbers. So Sky and Boxer are really coming up. And I know you're going to say Ben Shalom's got a lot to prove, and you may be right. But I just think, and they're also signing some real good young talent as well. I think Boxer are going to have a massive 2023, mate.
So it won't surprise you that I'm going to go DAZN worldwide, but I actually think Frank Warren's had the best year domestically with the Tyson Fury gigs and the way he's getting his fighters into prime positions, just Joe Joyce and people like that. So I think Frank Warren might just have pipped it. I think Frank Warren, they come back into the game a little bit. Queensberry Promotions, like you mentioned, the purse bids.
Yeah.
They're getting John Ryder over on their platform to fight. I do take your point regarding Boxer, though. I know I've been critical of Ben Shalom, but I do think slowly but surely he's building his stable. There's a concern for Eddie Hearn in the UK, isn't there? Because, you talk about Crispin and Smith, You talk about recently Lawrence Okola. You talk about Dalton Smith making noises that he's going to go over to Boxer as well when he's appearing on the commentary team. Has Eddie Hearn spread himself too thin? Is a UK boxing market a bit of an afterthought at the minute while he goes and develops other territories? There's quite a lot in the melting pot. So the next year will be very interesting because you're gonna have the AJ scenario. So I'm gonna pick a few comments up in the side because yeah. So Joe says these are Joe's views and not one of the channel, I might add. Old Fish Eyes has had a fantastic year, shoulder rolling his way to the top. Teresi says Eddie Hearn is a breath of fresh air to the sport. He's likable and makes himself approachable. People appreciate and gravitate to that. So it's a very interesting landscape in the UK at the minute. There's a lot of movement. So following on from that, and Andy, we're going to come to you first. Which broadcaster do you feel has had the best 2022? Now, this is an interesting question.
Right, okay. I honestly think that DAZN have shot themselves right in the foot. They've shown some massive fights, as Sean said earlier on. But this decision to put big fighters on pay-per-view going forward is disastrous for DAZN. And the way it's structured as well, Carl, is disastrous for DAZN. So give me 2 seconds, I'll explain what I mean. You pay for a pay-per-view on Sky, and if it's in the middle of the month or coming to the end of the month, I don't know about anybody else, I don't have 25, 26 quid to pay, especially in these times, to pay for a boxing show on a Saturday night. You buy it on Sky, you don't have to pay for it till your next bill's due.
I haven't even got the eating on, never mind buying.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, though, right? And I'm sure there's millions of people out there in the same position. So the point I'm making is to be able to watch a pay-per-view on DAZN, you have to pay for it there and then. And so people are already paying $7.99 after the big spiel about pay-per-view is dead. They're paying $7.99 a month, which I think is very fair. To then say, oh, we're going to watch this fight, you need to pay another 20 quid before you're allowed to watch it, straight up, out your pocket, out your bank, bosh. Not everyone's got that. Or maybe they have, but maybe they'd rather buy a loaf of bread and a pint of milk. So for me, mate, it should be DAZN, but they've shot themselves in the foot drastically. And Sky, as I said and mentioned earlier on about, I think the building as a promoter, it comes hand in hand, the promoter and the broadcaster with Sky. They work lots. They work so closely. Obviously, I know that's an obvious thing, but they work so closely, and they'll backbench along all the way. And they put some massive events on, mate. I mean, that, for example, Brooke Khan could have fell flat. They took the risk, and look how big it was. We were saying beforehand, we don't want to see that fight. It's rubbish.
But that was pay-per-view, though, right?
Say again?
That was pay-per-view, though, wasn't it, from memory?
Yeah, it was. It was. But they've always had the pay-per-view model, mate, and everyone knows it. And it goes back to what I've just said. You don't have to pay for that pay-per-view straight away.
But Sky's, all I would say, Sky isn't free, though, is it? You still got to pay monthly subscription.
Yeah, you have. You have. You're right. Yeah, absolutely, mate. But people that have always watched boxing will have always had that. They'll have always paid for the sports package because it goes hand in hand, as we've said, boxing, football. And the majority of people that pay for the Sky Sports package won't be buying it for boxing. They'll be buying it for football. So boxing is a bonus. So a lot of people will be thinking, well, I'm getting the boxing for free because I'm already paying for that anyway because of football.
But it does show you how sometimes we wear rose-tinted glasses because the undercard on that Khan versus Brooke card was absolutely stinker.
It was. and that's where Sky fall down a little bit, but I do believe that's getting better. I do believe it's getting better. To be honest with you, mate, I really can't give a definitive answer. After all that, it's so hard because they've all got faults and they've all got positives. I don't think anybody's stood out. You know, when you take into consideration all the payments and stuff.
Well, they're all around the same sort of price, aren't they? For honest, as a rule.
I think I'll be honest, Carl. I think because we've now got 3 promoters in the UK, 3 broadcasters in the UK for the large shows, I think it spreads boxing a bit thin, and that's why the quality of the undercards are not as good as they used to be. They're struggling to get opponents, mate.
And it brings me back to the same point that I made last week. My big concern is that these YouTube fights where they're pulling in big numbers, if mainstream boxing doesn't get its act together, broadcasters are going to start looking at that circus of a fight game, but purely looking at the numbers it's pulling in.
And they are doing already. DAZN already do that.
Well, DAZN, Sauerlands, they're there as well. So, boxing really does need to have a look at itself in 2023 and start getting the best fight in the best, or it's in big trouble. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, I think the Brains have the best year out of all the networks. But the only slight issue I have with them is the accessibility of it. I think I've got Sky Q, so you get like Netflix and everything all on the app. So I think they need to look at that for the DAZN if they want to continue to grow it and make it more accessible to people. Because, I mean, you can only really watch it if you've got like a smart sort of box or a computer. You can't really watch it on the telly like you would Sky BT. So I think that's the only issue I have with DAZN. It's not accessible enough for a lot of people.
I've only just seen the comment from Twiz.
I don't know what it means.
We'll read it out though. So Twiz has said, "How many quid's a fire stick?" I haven't got a clue what you're talking about there, mate. But I'm sure Cole could find out.
Well, the retail on Amazon about $39.99 to buy them. If you're looking at uploading Netflix and such like, so other retailers are available, but Amazon, if you want to sponsor the channel, there's a free plug. So Joe says all the platforms that have had some cracking cards on and put some shockers on as well, no one stands out. That's my similar train of thought and what you two guys says. I think DAZN have shot themselves in the foot with a couple of marketing ploys, to come out and say pay-per-view is dead like they did a couple of years ago during the UK launch. And then to introduce a pay-per-view model, it is ridiculous. I do agree with Frank Warren regarding it does smell a bit like Box Nation and Satanta, where it's just basically a boxing app. There's a reason why Frank Warren pulled out of Box Nation, because it was losing money. So we are with the purse strings. So DAZN have got a lot to look at, really. But cost of living, people can't afford to be throwing 30, 40 quid. It'd be interesting what the AJ situation looks like next year.
Just pick a comment up from Joe. Joe Allen Boxing. That last DAZN YouTube type show was awful. Joe, they're all awful. But I get your point, mate. Next one, Cole.
So Twizy says, good holiday sales going on. Laughing my arse off. Twizy, let it drop. We're not sponsored by that brand of fire stick. If we're moving on. So,
hold on, before we move on to next year, have we done KO over the year?
No.
Should we do that?
Yeah, put that up now if you want. Sean, it's your turn around Robin, so KO of the year. I mean, I'm going to go to Lee Wood, so that's me done.
Yeah, I actually think Chris Billam-Smith from last weekend, because the way the fight was going, it didn't really look like it was going to stop him. If anything, it was sort of a even fight, and then for him to pull that out how he did, I just think that sort of tops it off. Maybe it's because it's the most recent one, but I think for me that's probably the KO of the year.
I mean, it was interesting. Just on a quick side note, are people saying that Chris Billam-Smith would be favourite to beat Rayapur now? I don't see that, to be honest.
No.
There's a few things I took from that fight. Because Chris Billam-Smith's not had it put on him like that in the early rounds, like that, the way he did in that fight. And I think he struggles a little bit on the back foot, Sean, if I'm being completely honest. I think he's good going forward. But
world class.
But going on the back foot, his defense is not great. He got hit way too much. He got buzzed a few times. But credit to him, he come through that really tough early stage, and the combination for the knockout was outstanding.
Couple of comments on the side. Joe says, "What's Callum Smith's this year?" I think I want to say February time. I'm just looking at
Callum Smith against Gilberto Riviera is the one you're talking about, where the guy was poleaxed pretty much on the floor.
Yeah, I him out, didn't I?
It was outstanding. So I've got both of those. I've got Callum Smith against Riviera. I've got Chris Billam-Smith against Zhou Jan from last weekend. Lee Wood against Colin, like you've said, Carl. But let's not forget Cordina against Agawa. Yep. That was pure timing. Pure timing. Because he's not, as Sean said a little bit earlier, he's not known for being a big knockout artist. No. But that was pure timing. It was outstanding, that knockout.
Too easy said Callum Plant's KO of Durrell.
I like, too easy. I agree with you on the KO, but I really didn't like the aftermath antics. That was really bad. I mean, I think he got a bit overexcited, but he didn't only do it once, he did it twice. And to do that while a guy's still out cold on the floor is real bad taste for me. Real bad taste, because you just don't know in boxing.
Yeah.
Whether somebody's going to come out of being out cold on the floor.
And you know that I'm a big fan of Shane McGuigan, and it was nice to see him calm Billam-Smith down Saturday night and calm the crowd down until the guy got up off the oxygen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And the same thing happened with Callum Smith, didn't it, on that big knockout?
Yeah.
Paul Smith jumped in the ring and because the fighter, you can't blame him for when they're putting somebody down like that. You can't blame them for instantly reacting. You know, like jumping on the ring ropes and. But the Caleb Plant one, he did it. He did that digging thing he does, and that it was bad enough once. The ref stopped him from doing it, and then he went and did it again. And and Durrell was still out cold. And we've had tragedies over the years in boxing where fighters don't come out of being knocked out very well at all, and they're in really bad positions. Luckily, Durrell's fine. But if that had gone another way, mate, that would have looked really bad for Caleb Plant.
It just really poor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right,
any of them, I'm gonna go for purely for everything that went on in the fight. I've got to go for Lee Wood.
And also the level of opponent. Because that's why he got my vote, because Conlan is going to be a world champion, so that victory is going to age very well.
You've gone for the Lee Wood knockout, have you, Carl?
Yeah. So Joe Allen Boxing says the Plant thing happened because of the racial disrespect, which should never be allowed in sport, no matter the colour. I missed. I clearly missed that, Joe. Yeah, I've not read that.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about there, pal. Yeah, I missed that. I'm assuming you're talking about the build up to the fight, are you? And like I said, Genuinely, I didn't see that.
Right, let's move on then. So, looking forward to 2023. We know some fights have been announced, but I'm happy for you to throw in potential fights. So, Andy, you're first up on this one. What are you looking forward to in 2023?
Oh, without a shadow of that, Liam Smith, Eubank Jr. It's mouth-watering, mate.
Decent undercard as well now.
Yeah, it's going to be a very good show, mate. It's going to be a very good show, and it's an outstanding fight. This I don't like the antics that Eubank's playing around with at the minute. I think he's been a bit disrespectful to what Liam's achieved in boxing. And I know he's doing it to try and get a mental edge and to wind him up or whatever, but I think it's a bit disrespectful. That being said, though, it's a very, very good fight, and they both need to be on the A games to win.
Yeah,
they both need to be, and it will be a close fight. So that one for me, and also I don't even know if it's been fully announced yet, but Leigh Wood against Lara. Very difficult for. Sorry,
it hasn't been made.
Sorry, I'll change what I said there. I was just about to say very difficult fight. It's a very dangerous fight.
Yeah,
but I think Leigh Wood's a much better fighter.
It's not been announced. It's not been announced officially, but you've got undercard fighters coming out and talking about being on the show. So worst kept secret.
I think it's happening, mate. Lara is a fighter nobody really wants to go near. The fight was made obviously before Leigh Wood got injured, and you'd forgive Leigh Wood for then not dodging the fight and taking a different fight, maybe a unification. Now he's been made up to the sole WBA champion. You could forgive him for stepping aside Lara and going and taking on another champion for massive money. But he wants to fight the people that are dangerous. He wants to fight the best. And he's proving it here because very early on, Lara is a seriously dangerous fighter. But I think Leigh Wood's got too much boxing-wise. His boxing ability is way better than Lara's, in my opinion. And he can also punch as well. I don't know whether Lara's been properly tested. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Those two for me, though.
Sean?
For me, it's one over in America, and it's Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. I think that's a cracking fight. And you know, with the lightweight division, I don't think either of them's going to fight Haney anytime soon. So I think this is probably the best fight in the division outside of the world champions fight. Yeah.
So I've got a couple. Obviously, Leigh Wood, Lara, that goes without saying. Taylor versus Cattrall.
Yep.
Just been confirmed. It's going to happen in Scotland. Cattrall's got it all on there. Tyson Usyk.
I'll just go back to the Taylor Cattrall one a minute, Carl.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement. We're all in agreement that Cattrall won that first fight convincingly, right? Taylor's now moved coaches.
Yep.
He's now gone to the Rotunda. Completely different style of coach. So that being said, how do you think this second fight plays out?
I think Taylor beats him in the second one.
You do?
Yeah. I think he went into that first fight. I draw parallels with Froch and Groves, where Froch went into that first fight, you know, taking it a little bit easier. But I think levels will dictate the second fight, and I think Josh Taylor's levels above Jack Cattrall, unfortunately. So I think Josh Taylor will beat him and then move on.
Well, you know what I've thought of Josh Taylor over the years. He's right up there for me. Right on the borders at pound for pound.
Let himself down a little bit though.
Yeah, he did, mate. He did, and he probably looks back on that, and he probably regrets some of the comments he made, and the way he went about stuff. I'm not dismissing what Jack Cattrall did though, because I do think Taylor had a bad night, but I think Jack Cattrall made him have a bad night.
Yeah,
I think Cattrall did everything right, and if he can recreate that, it's a very, very close fight.
I'll give you that analogy that I normally do. I think that was his cup final. I don't think he performs that well again. And Taylor doesn't perform that badly again.
Taylor definitely don't perform that badly again. Sometimes fighters need a change of scenery and a change of a voice to get the best out of them again, and maybe gone a little bit stale. He'll be on it because I think he thinks himself he's got something to prove. No matter what he says in public about that first fight, deep down I think he'll know he's got something to prove.
Well, you ain't got to go far. You haven't got to go far, have you, to hear someone say that he lost that fight?
No. No, there's not many people thought he won the fight, to be fair. There's been a few people on social media from America, of all places, think that he won the fight. Quite prominent boxing figures as well. The way they scored it, they thought he won it by a point or two. I didn't see it that way at all. I look at it a little bit differently to you, though. I think Catterall is as good as that, and I think he just needed that one fight to prove it. So I see this as a very, very close fight. I think Taylor comes through it, though. I'll be honest. I think comes through it, but I think it's a very, very close fight.
I think Catterall will go on to win a belt at that weight division when Josh Taylor's moved up. I
feel for Catterall, I really do, mate, because he's had. That should have been his glorious night, and he's had it taken away from him, and he's never going to get that opportunity for a long time if it happens to become undisputed.
I'll just big comment up on his side. So Joe Allen Boxing says, I'm not sure Tank and Garcia will actually happen because Tank has a court case, which many say is going to jail. I hope that doesn't happen. That's the fight I want to see.
Wow.
Interesting. And then obviously Tyson versus Usyk is going to be a massive fight. Absolutely massive. It's going to be in the Middle East, no doubt. So that's the one I'm really looking forward to.
Again, are you still of the opinion that Fury wins that easy?
Yeah. But, yeah. There's nothing. I'll tell you what, Tyson Fury did the job that AJ is not good enough to do. And that's to use all his advantages. And then I think he'll fight Joe Joyce later on in the year.
That's the fight for me. I'm more interested in seeing Fury against Joe Joyce.
Well, it's interesting when he jumped up on the apron. They're very similar in size, aren't they?
They are. And Joyce's. Well, we know what Joyce's attributes are, mate. Fury's a million times better boxer than Joe Joyce. Pure boxer, sweet science and all that. But Joe Joyce has all the attributes to give Tyson Fury nightmares in that fight because he's never going to stop. He's never going to stop.
It's a very interesting.
He's going to be the one for me, mate, that pushes Fury in this division in this era. He's the one that pushes him right to the limit. Having said that, you know what I think of Usyk? I think Usyk is a better fighter than Tyson Fury, but he's not big enough as an heavyweight to beat the very best. He's not big enough, and that's the difference in that fight for me. Tyson Fury makes that fight as difficult or as easy as he wants to, just because of his size. Only because of his size, though, Carl. Because I think Usyk's as good, if not better, than Fury as a pure boxer.
We'll find out. Joe Allen Boxing says Fury Usyk 2, yes. Also, Wilder Ruiz. I think Joyce is the future. Joyce is getting on though, Joe. To call him the future, he's getting on in age.
Well, is he what, 33, 34?
Yeah, I think Wilder would knock Ruiz out. So it might be that Fury's talking about if he fights Wilder again, it'll be at Wembley. It'll be mandated though, won't it? Because they'll put him in the mandatory position for WBC.
It's just going around in circles though, mate, isn't it? I'll be honest with you, I don't want to see that fight.
I'll go at Wembley.
It's a spectacle, of course it is. But realistically, Carl, come on. Realistically, do you really want to see a fourth fight when Fury's done what he's done in the first three?
I'd watch it though. I'm not saying I want it, but it'll be mandated. So you're gonna
I
have to.
know it will. Yeah, I know it will. I know it will. Yeah, it doesn't float my boat. I'll be honest.
And
Again,
people who slag Wilder off because he can't box, he's only got a one-trick pony. Well, let's be honest, he did more to Fury than the likes of Dillian White did, than Derek Chisora did. So maybe we ought to start giving him a bit of credit for his boxing skill.
no, behave.
Well, he done a lot more in them fights than them two managed. In terms of Dillian White got knocked out first round.
But again, Cole, purely on power.
But
He only put Fury down because of his power, mate.
But he was still in the position to land the shot, so he can't be that bad, can he?
No, because he gets it. No. I've got to disagree with you, mate. He doesn't use boxing skill to get into that position. He doesn't use.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, let me finish.
If he can't box, he wouldn't land.
Let me finish. He doesn't use boxing skill to get into that position. He doesn't use a jab. He doesn't come in behind a jab because he hasn't got one. He doesn't use good footwork, boxing footwork to get into them positions. He's such a big athletic guy. He launches from a long way out and he's got a massive reach. He launches from a long way out and he's always off balance when he throws them shots.
I thought he fought a bit better in that second fight. I thought
he showed a lot of heart. He showed a lot of heart and determination. I'll give him that. But his boxing skills are no better than they've ever been.
I'm not saying he's the best boxer, but I do think people slate him a little bit. He must have some, or I'll go back to my original point, he wouldn't be able to land. What do you think, Sean?
I think in terms of Usyk and Fury, I do see Usyk causing an upset. I just think he'll be a kryptonite for Fury, and I always go back to the Steve Cunningham fight. I know it was probably 10 years ago now, but I think Fury does sort of struggle against guys that are quite a bit smaller than him, and I think Usyk's speed. I don't think he'll be there for Fury to walk him down. I think he'll use the ring to his advantage, and I can see him outboxing Fury.
So Joe said Wilder's got very good timing. Teresa said Fury versus Wilder 4 is as useless as a knitted condom. There's a new one on there. So don't you think Fury's my argument there, Joe, Sean, would be that Fury's a totally different fighter and a different animal to the Steve Cunningham fight?
But I guess that brings him more hittable, doesn't it? Because if you remember when he fought Cunningham, that was under Peter Fury, wasn't it? And that was when he's more defensive-minded fighter. I think he's more hittable now than he's ever been, and I think with Usyk's IQ and brain, I just think he'll be in and out too quick and sort of box rings around him almost.
And we always say you can't keep going back to the well, but I made the point, if Deontay Wilder couldn't knock him out, Sean, then Usyk's definitely not going to knock him out. So he's dragging points.
Yeah. Usyk won't knock him out. It'll be on points if he wins.
It'll be an interesting fight. Divides opinion. So, any other topics you want to cover, gents? Join in sidebar. Any other topics you want to cover for the last 10 minutes? Post it now. If not, we'll bring the show to an end for 2022 and we'll see you the first Thursday in January. So let's be having any suggestions. Andy, isn't this where you're seeing Carol?
Sorry, Sean.
Do you both think we'll see Conor Benn back next year at some point, or do you think he'll be banned, or how do you see that going?
What does that statement even mean, Sean? You know, he's come out and said that he's cleared it. He's proved his innocence. I think are the words he used. Well, where? So yeah, I was a bit puzzled by that.
I agree with you there, Carl. It's a very strange statement to put out because there's no evidence to say he's
It stopped short of it, didn't it? It stopped short of it. So he said, "I proved my innocence. I proved them innocent." Well, then,
as a channel, we didn't jump on the bandwagon of condemning him the way so many other channels, so many other ex-pro fighters, so many other current pro fighters, managers, promoters, or they all jumped on the bandwagon and they condemned him straight away. We didn't do that because things can happen in boxing. Contaminations do happen. Do they happen over 2 different tests at 2 different times for the same substance? That's the question for me. That's the question. And I'm prepared to allow the powers that be to run whatever tests and stuff they've got to do to prove or not prove whether those tests were accurate, whether those results were accurate before I condemn him. I'm not sure he can come back and be the same fighter. If I'm being honest,
It doesn't help though when he's saying I'll never box on a British Boxing Board of Control card again. I know his old man went that way, but it doesn't sound good, does it? Whoever's advising him, just keep stum, get your legal bits done, and then come back when you actually got something to tell us or some proof.
yeah.
So
I mean, he also in that statement, he also slated a lot of people. I mean, he come out saying he'll forgive, but he'll never forget. You know, that's kind of burning bridges with a lot of people, isn't it?
yeah.
I think he has no choice, Carl. I think he has no choice. When and if he does come back, he has no choice but to go to America. I don't think he can fight in the UK again.
So Joe says, my take is that we need to bring back a super heavyweight division. Boxing would rebound in popularity if the Giants were super heavy and £200 to 240 to heavyweight. Joe Wall says, go on, Anna.
That's a good shout, mate.
Yeah,
because what you've got at the minute, Carl. We talked about this a little bit on a previous show. We were talking about trying to compare Tyson Fury with Lennox Lewis.
Heavyweights,
Heavyweights in the 90s and the Alis, Sonny Listons and Larry Holmeses and fighters like that. All of them were probably 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", weren't they? Never massive. I mean, what's Fury? 6'9", 6'10"?
6'9".
It's a big difference, isn't it? It's a massive leap. And I think maybe that statement's right. I think it would benefit boxing if they had an extra division. Absolutely. I'll go with that one. Nice comment.
Maybe they should have gone with that rather than the Bridgerweight, eh?
The Bridgerweight's a joke.
So Joe Wall says an inexperienced Fury against Cunningham, completely different fighter. I agree. And then Teresa says your top prospects for 2023. So Sean, I'll come to you first. Who are you going to be keeping an eye on in 2023?
I think Jordan Thompson, the Matchroom Cruiserweight, I think he's one to keep an eye on.
Making big noises about him, aren't they?
Yeah.
What about you, Andy?
Adam Azim for me, mate.
Yeah.
The guy's dynamite.
I know you're not a big fan of this geezer, but I'm going Dennis McCann. I'm going to keep an eye on him.
I think he's good, mate, but I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, and then obviously you got the big American heavyweight, aren't you? Baby Miller, that they're always banging on about.
Jared Anderson.
Yeah, let's get Anderson. Let's get him over to the UK in with some.
He's still very young, Carl. I mean, you might not see the best of him for another 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But I know they're putting a lot of pressure on that kid, aren't they? That he is the next big open to out of that heavyweight division for him for the stateside. So very interesting. So Joe says for 2023, I look for Garcia to break out. Joe says Dubois and Aziz. Is that Caroline or the brother? Good shot, too easy. Keyshawn Davis would be my pick. Good shot. Yeah, some good names there.
Do you want to pick that comment up from Joe Allen Boxing?
Which one? Which one?
That my 7-year. It's gone out my screen, mate.
My 7-year best prospect is myself. I'm 14, 5'9", and 190 pounds.
Joe, do you want to feel free to jump on, mate? Come and plug yourself.
Oh, so Joe was talking about Caroline Dubois.
Yeah, Caroline was looking the absolute business, isn't she?
She's going to run out of fighters. That's the only problem.
She's going to end up having to step into the deep water, Cole, before she's maybe quite ready for it. I mean, she might just demolish them all anyway, regardless.
I think she will.
She's going to end up going to world level very quickly.
Okay, so post any other comments about any topics. We've got 4 minutes before we bring the show to an end. If nothing's posted, then Andy can take us out for the last time in 2022. So, Andy, I over to you to sing your Christmas carol, Andy.
Behave yourself. Don't want to scare everybody off.
Wanted Silent Night, you was going to sing. So, Joe Allen Boxing says, you can all see some of me here on YouTube. Thanks to you all. I love the show. You might want to put the links in the chat, Joe, if you can find some of your videos, and then obviously they'll be on the video when it's uploaded later on today.
Are you currently boxing for under, Joe? If you are, whereabouts are you from, mate? Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Joe, what I will do, Joe, I'll post a link. If you are able to join us, then feel free to jump on.
Yeah, and if you can't this time, mate, jump on in the future. Absolutely. It's all about we back local promoters in our area, Joe. We go to a lot of small old shows, do a lot of interviews with prospects up and coming. You'll see a few of them on the channel from a Cold Grief show we went to last weekend.
It depends where Joe is, though. He could well be stateside.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, could be. But I'm just saying that, as a show car, we like to back up and coming prospects. Just give Joe a couple of minutes, see if he wants to jump on, and then we'll call it a night.
Well, then you need to fill the air, Andy. Come on, clear the throat.
Yeah, behave yourself, mate. It's not happening.
So just a reminder, we won't be on here next week, but we will be on here the week after, the first Thursday in January. So Luigi said, I appreciate all your work, dudes, always on point, entertaining and calling it like it is. Boxing benefits with content creators like yourselves. Thank you to Last Bell Boxing.
Oh, thanks, Tuiza.
Tuiza, that is much appreciated. All true, by the way, but much appreciated.
And the Tuizi, just on that, mate, this show wouldn't work without you guys in the sidebar.
Oh, we're well. Oh, it's a beautiful moment, isn't it? Oh, season of goodwill to all men.
It's true, mate. It's true. That's what I've said it a few times, but I'll say it again. And I know Carl gets bored of me talking about it. That's why we decided to make this channel in the first place. I know we go to a lot of shows now and we have a lot of content of interviews with fighters, but the whole idea of the show originally was to do this live Thursday night slot where boxing fans could come on, give their opinions, jump on screen. I mean, Sean was once a Last Bell Boxing virgin, and he's on here every week with us now. Part of the crew, pretty much, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, you guys can't get rid of me anymore now.
We won't want to, mate. We won't want to.
Although, can I just say that I don't agree with Sean's political views on Twitter. I just don't want to align myself with his outrageous political views. Joe, you've hit the nail on the head. We are all dossers. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't argue with that one, Joe. I'll give you that one, mate. Merry Christmas to you, pal.
Right. And Sean, have a good Christmas, mate. Happy New Year. Everyone in sidebar, have a great Christmas and a New Year. We'll see you in January. And I'll pass it on to Andy to take it out.
Yeah, brilliant show again. He I kind of like these shows when we just do it off the cuff, Cole, to be honest. You get some really good comments in the sidebar. It's been a real nice journey. We're 18 months in this show now. It's been a real nice journey for this period. More to come in 2023.
Where's my lighter? I need to put my lighter in the air. Every one of them moments.
Thank you to everyone in the sidebar for everything you've done. joining us this year. It's much appreciated. And we'll see you all in the new year.